Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We're in the Inland Empire today. We're joined by Mike Gardner. Mike, of course, is a member of the Riverside City Council. And recently, your city council looked at the question of marijuana cultivation. In the background, I do want to mention that the city of Riverside was the key litigant in a case that went to the California Supreme Court, yes, which gave Riverside and all cities what?
The ability to decide where or whether marijuana dispensaries and collectives can be placed within the city.
Right, and in that case, on a 7-0 decision, the California Supreme Court ruled that as a matter of zoning, cities and municipalities and governmental entities could zone out dispensaries.
Yes.
So that begs the question about growing in one's city. Talk to us about that.
There really are two issues. The problem that cities face, and I'll talk about Riverside's experience, is under the old Prop 215,
right,
or Prop 15.
No, 215. It was 215. Yeah, it was.
The Compassionate Care Act. People are entitled to grow a certain number of plants for their own personal use if they have a recommendation from a medical professional. That has been interpreted and is in some instances allowing people to consolidate their number of plants with others, and they grow them in a single location, often in a house, in a neighborhood. And
a huge number of plants.
We have one that the police department found 600 plants.
Wow.
Which is far more than any patient could use.
No.
So, and clearly they said, we are a collective, we're growing for this many people, here are their cards or copies of their cards.
Oh, okay. So they had, what they were doing was legal at the time.
It was legal. It's still legal today.
Oh, wow.
But it does have a significant impact on neighbors.
Why though? I mean, talk me through it.
Several reasons. One of the primary ones is a mature marijuana plant, as it's beginning to bud, has a very pungent smell. Some people actually call it stinkweed.
Right.
And it gets to the point when you have that many plants that the odor is really noticeable in neighborhoods.
It's as if you're at a rock concert 24 hours a day.
Well, that's more having it burn. It's a different odor.
Type of odor, okay.
And it is very pungent.
Right.
So you have that impact. The people who come to care for the plants, the people who come to pick up their share, assuming it's all legitimate.
Right. It all becomes, it's almost a commercial venture in the middle of a residential
in a residential neighborhood. So it's a problem.
So the city council decided to look at this question, and in the background, you were cajoled into looking into this question because the state passed some legislation which essentially directed cities to regulate, or the state will regulate for you.
Exactly. By March of 2016, the state, if a local governmental entity has not adopted its own regulations, then the state will adopt something that covers everybody. So if a local entity
wants...
like
the groundwater ordinance.
Right, exactly.
You can regulate first. If you don't, we're coming in.
Exactly. And then you live by it.
Right.
So Riverside is looking at adopting an ordinance patterned roughly after an ordinance that was adopted by Riverside County to control where and how many plants can be cultivated for personal use for medical marijuana patients.
So you are allowing the cultivation of marijuana plants?
It looks as though we will. We've not adopted yet, but
technically speaking, could you have precluded the cultivation?
Yes.
Under the Supreme Court case that came out of...
You can zone it out.
Interesting.
So the way it appears that we're going is to allow cultivation of a limited number of plants for a single patient on a single parcel.
I see. So those patients couldn't share it with others.
Right.
Even if those others had a card.
Exactly. Well, you can't grow for others. So
I understand, it's a little complicated, but I got it.
I mean, we're looking at, right now the discussion is 6 plants at any one time for a patient. And typically people will grow plants in different stages of development.
I see.
Because typically if you smoke as your medicine, you want to smoke the buds and the flowers. Some people juice the leaves or distill the leaves.
Who would have thunk that we'd learn all of this? I mean, when we were younger, it was, just say no, and, we were going in the other direction.
Yeah, really. And I don't doubt that there are legitimate medical uses for marijuana.
Right.
I know of people who really do depend on it.
As do I.
And I think it's appropriate that we allow them to have that source of medication.
So along those lines, sir, if I may, I want to talk about dispensaries.
Yes.
Because not all of us have a green thumb. Not all of us want to take the time to cultivate marijuana. It's not, I have never done it, but I have to assume, or maybe I'm wrong, that it takes a little TLC to get the plant to grow as one needs it to grow. And so as a result, they rely on dispensaries, the people who don't have those green thumbs. In Riverside, a city of over 300,000 with a nice geographic footprint, there are no dispensaries.
There are not.
I mean, couldn't one not argue it's not compassionate not to at least have one?
One can argue that, and people do. And maybe one day there will be. We can amend our zoning code as we see fit. Up until recently, there were legal dispensaries fairly close to the city of Riverside. Riverside County has now banned them as well.
Oh my! But what about Harupa Valley, which is right next door?
Any
for
city,
example?
I don't believe they have a rule yet. They're looking at one, but that was a location that people from City of Riverside went to.
Because I asked, look, if you're now limiting the number of plants you can grow, you're making it even more difficult. You know, it's only 6 plants, and you can't sell it, I guess, or provide it to others. You're making it more difficult.
Riverside's ordinance is pointed toward allowing the primary caretaker for a patient to grow if the patient can't.
Okay, so there's a little
wiggle
room.
There's some. And we had a hearing recently, and we had several patients come and speak, and they were satisfied with that. There's some discussion, is 6 plants enough or do we need more? But the idea that I can grow my own in a single-family residential neighborhood, if I happen to live in multifamily housing, my caretaker can grow for me. So I think it's a fair compromise. We'll never find something that satisfies everyone.
Here's an interesting point, though. It is likely that we will see initiatives on the November 2016 ballot that would legalize marijuana.
For recreational use.
For recreational use. So query whether the May 2013 Supreme Court case that allowed Riverside and all cities to zone out marijuana dispensaries, would it apply once marijuana is legalized for recreational purposes?
We don't know that. I suspect that's something that will end up back at the Supreme Court.
Of course it will.
I expect that Riverside will argue that yes, it does apply.
I mean, could Riverside, for example, exclude liquor stores? Because liquor stores are legal.
Right.
Do you know? I don't know.
I suspect we could. I don't know that that's ever been tried. There have been instances tested where governmental entities have attempted to zone out a perceived undesirable use, an adult bookstore,
or a strip club.
Yes, and the courts have held you may not preclude them totally. You may say that they can only be within certain areas and a certain distance from other sensitive receptors.
Putting on my law student cap, my guess is that may be the ruling, that you can't completely zone out, but you need to have areas where they can legally operate.
I suspect we will find that out, assuming the initiative passes.
Fascinating stuff. I want to thank you so much for joining us, Mike Gardner. He is a member of the Riverside City Council. My name is Brad Pomerance. In the Inland Empire, we thank you for joining us on Charter Local Edition.